Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Burn Desire Show. And today we're joined by Seb Brantigan. I presume I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you have. Perfect.
Yeah,
Spot on.
yeah. It's easy enough when it's someone from England or the UK. When it's like someone overseas, and if you forget to ask beforehand, it becomes a bit problematic. But no, we're all good. And I know people get sick of this quote, but I always use it, which is the Steve Jobs that you can't connect dots going forwards, only backwards. Even then, I would probably ask the caveat. It's always sometimes difficult as well. The leaps and things that happen aren't always as kind of simple as when we look retrospectively in hindsight, but it's still a good place to start from. So I always like to kind of understand, like back into your school sort of days, like were you studious? Did you enjoy certain subjects, like all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, a little bit about me as well, alongside that. So, I was born in Ipswich, Suffolk. I've always stayed in the Suffolk area. So, I'm 31 years old now. But yeah, going back to school time. So, obviously, went to school in Ipswich as well. School for me was an interesting one. There are bits of school that I enjoyed, bits of it I didn't enjoy. I had some friends. I wasn't the most popular, but I wasn't the least popular.
Hmm.
So there were some ups and downs in school. Now, one of the more interesting aspects of school and what got me into being an entrepreneur, and of course I could talk about that as well. But what got me into the idea of entrepreneurship to start with is I remember I think I was in year nine, so I was around 15, something like that. Um, and we had this motivational speaker coming to school, and this was just before we're about to do exams and all the rest of it, and A levels, things like that. And so we had this motivational speaker come in and try and motivate us, inspire us. And then towards the end of his talk, he then talked about some interesting things. One of them is he read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which
Hmm.
got him into entrepreneurship and motivational speaking and things like that. And that's from that book, and from him mentioning that book, that got me into the idea of entrepreneurship, running your own business, and that world. I hadn't been brought up with that kind of mindset and that kind of thing. So for me, that was definitely the best part of school in retrospect. Having that happen, if that didn't have or hadn't have happened, I don't know where I'd be now, to be honest.
Mm.
So it definitely, like I say, had its ups and downs, and but like anything, I wouldn't change it for the world.
It's,
For
it's
sure.
it's it is interesting that like one talk, one moment like that can kind of have such a dramatic shift. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, it's not exactly related, but I was saying that there is a analogy of if two people are stood in like an expanse, like a desert or something like this, and they set off on the exact same path, but one is like a degree different than the other. After a certain period of time, the difference as to where they've gone is crazy. And like I think it's sometimes things like this, like you know what I mean, that kind of little thing that at that time like didn't mean a lot, but now you're like, oh, that probably set off the passion or burning desire inside of you to go like, maybe that's something I want to go into. Did you then pick up that book? Was that what the next kind of thing that happened? Did you read the book? Is that what then happened from that talk?
Yeah, basically. So I remember the guy finished his talk, and I remember I didn't quite catch the name of the book. So I remember going and approaching him, and then talking to him about it, and
Yeah.
saying thank you for the talk and everything. One of the other things that he did that was really interesting is he then went into his wallet to then, at the time I was like, oh, he's going to give me some money, or something like that. So I thought that'd be nice if he gave me five or something. But what he did is he did actually pull out a £5 note, and then on this £5 note, he'd then drawn lots of zeros. Instead of it saying five, it said like 500,000 or something like that. And he says, I look at this every day and I visualize this. This is something I visualize every single day. And I carry this with me all the time as a reminder of that's my goal. So not only was the book, I mean, I definitely pick up and read the book, and I've got some really cool concepts from that, but also from him just sharing that one bit of information, with me, that one thing. It taught me the value of having a vision board and having goals, and being surrounded by what you're looking to achieve. So that was another interest in it that came out. So that hour and a half definitely changed my life. Those two things alone from it. Um, Yeah, and like you say, that little tiny little decision. Imagine if I was sick from school that day, or
Yeah.
imagine if I bunked off, or I didn't normally bunk off, but imagine if I did, or I
Yes.
wasn't in the room, like how different things would
Did
be.
couple of questions on that. Did what was the purpose of him coming in, and what was his like? Did he have a business alongside it, or was his job a motivational speaker, as it were?
So I believe his job was a motivational speaker, and because we were getting ready to do exams, I
Ah,
think it was to motivate us to do the best we could in exams. He gave a bit of career advice as well, so there was kind of
yeah.
that aspect of it because we were about a year from effectively leaving school, so there was definitely that mention as well.
Did other like you other students or your friends, did they take anything from it, or you were just for you for some reason it resonated more, and for others they were like it's just another guy talking sort of thing?
Yeah, for others, I mean, they were definitely making fun of him a bit because he was like doing the guy was in the army, so he was talking about that and he was doing reenactments of it, which was quite entertaining. But yeah, yeah, basically, I think I was probably the only one out of the few hundred people in the room who seems to take notice of it. I think anyway. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, have you ever
it
have you
just
found the guy since, or you know who he is, or not clear?
no, no, I'd love to. I think his name was Raj or something. I'd love to know who he is to thank him, like indirectly,
Mm,
what that one experience has done for me.
awesome.
Yeah, so that would be really cool.
It
But
it's actually one of the reasons that I do this podcast and then the vlog I do on a Sunday, because you just never know the just one person who one thing, and even if it's like they completely disagree with you, but like they go off and do something about it, or it challenges their thinking, or even if it challenges my thinking, and they say, hey, what you said there, like I think what I'm not going to do this, that, and the other. For me, I say this all the time. People are so quick to talk about the negatives of social media, the negatives of the modern kind of world, and it's like, well, hold on a second, like any tool that there is, there's lots of great sides to it. Like, how would you and I have this conversation right now without the advent of Zoom, without this podcast opportunity and whatever else? And potentially someone sees it and thinks of something, or reaches out to you or me, or whatever happens. But most people just look at it from this all the downside of it. And I always equate that to like looking at like fire, and it could burn the apartment building I'm sat in right now, but it also can make this apartment warm, provide me with food. It can, various other things, and that's the same with anything. And I think just too quick people are to jump on. Oh, Instagram's bad. It's like actually for me and what I do day to day, which is a watch dealer. I find out about the new releases from Instagram much faster than the brands tell you, because like
mm,
the big event in the watch world is in April, so next month, and that's in Geneva. Now it used to be the case that you would wait till then, and brands would release stuff, but now because everyone wants to get out of the way of Rolex, they like pepper little things here and there. Like Audemars Piguet came out yesterday, and I find out about stuff from Instagram. So for me, it's a super useful tool, like, and how my Instagram's set up. Like, I'm pretty much all I see on my page is just watch related stuff, which just
yeah,
enhances what I'm doing day to day. It's like continuous learning, to pardon the kind of phrase. But whereas you can use Instagram in many different ways, same with TikTok or whatever it is, which we'll probably come on to in a second. But I do think it's interesting that people are so quick to kind of uh, call these modern technologies like so damaging and dangerous. Like, well, hold on a second. It's also, I know, a big part of what you do. It's provided immense opportunity for people. So going back to the tangent there, but going back to the Rich Dad Poor Dad story, what did you take from that book then? And I presume, have you maybe read it since or thought about it since? Like, how's it kind of changed?
yeah, great question. So within that book, for anyone who's not read it, there's tons of stuff in there. But one of the things that Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book, talks about is the four quadrants. So basically, whenever you earn income, he categorizes it in four quadrants. The first quadrant is you're an employee or you're employed, so you work for someone else. The second quadrant is you're self-employed, so you work for yourself. The third quadrant is you are a business owner, self-explanatory, and the fourth quadrant is you're an investor. So the idea is you want to move from the left categories where you're employed, self-employed, over to where you're a business owner and investor. The reason he suggests that, what I learned, is the power of leverage. When you have a business, then you're able to leverage having a team that can help you to earn income and build an empire, that kind of thing. Because it's very difficult to do on your own. You can only do it to a certain point before you hit a ceiling. But he then talked a lot about investing, such as in property, stocks, and all the rest of it, which is something I'm kind of looking to get into the future. But it was just the concept of, you don't have to work a 9 to 5 if you don't want to. Like, you have a choice. And I'm not saying a 9 to 5 is bad. Like, I worked lots of good jobs that treat me well, and I had, paid time off. So I'm not slaying on jobs at all. Like, definitely not, to be clear. But if that's not what you want to do and that's not where you see yourself, you have an option to be, a business owner, investor, create that leverage in your life where you're creating that time freedom, financial freedom. That's one of the things you always hear about. One of the things I think the book didn't teach me as much as I would have liked it to is, how do you specifically get there? Like, how do you start a business? How do you invest in, or how do you become an investor? And obviously that book is more about teaching you how do you the concepts behind it. But yeah, that was one of the most powerful things that I learned from the book, and that I took away, is just there's this whole world of you can be what you want to be, and kind of create your own job and your own reality as well.
So from that day, you do your studies. Like, did they go okay? Did you then change what you were trying to do based on what happened that day, or did you tell your parents and stuff? Like, what happened then?
Yeah, it was yeah, pretty life changing. Where I did try and tell my parents, very supportive, but they were still like, no, you've still got to get a job, which makes sense. I did try and choose like business studies and economics. My grades were okay, but were not good enough where I could do a lot of those studies at an A level,
Mhm.
or at higher education. So that was a little bit limiting for me. So I got like mostly C's, a few B's, a few D's. So not terrible, okay. For me, actually, I was quite surprised, because towards the end of my educational, end of my being year 9, year 10, end of high school, I was very focused on start my business. So I was really focused on that and spending a lot of time researching that rather than actually studying. So I'm actually surprised I got the grades I got because of it. So yeah, I got lucky on that one, I think. But yeah, for me, I guess what I realized is, the education system for me wasn't something I saw a future in, as in I didn't want to go to university. I didn't really want to study in school for much longer. I wanted to study something that I wanted to study. And as I say, I didn't have good enough grades where I could do it at that level anyway, through university or college.
Yeah.
So I had to go a different path. I had to learn it myself.
So is that what happened then? You finished school. Did you what age did you leave school?
So I left school when I was like 16, 17. I did do um yeah, I did do A levels for 1 year, but yeah, then I was like 17, 18 when I left education, and that's when I, soon after that, went into my first job.
And was that, well, it wasn't your first job? I think you got into then like in the council, right? So the county council, was that like the next thing that kind of came to be?
Yeah, exactly. So my mum was working there at the time, so she told me about these temporary jobs in the council, and for me it was like, great, my first job. I can obviously take some of that income and invest into this idea of being an entrepreneur. And
Yep.
so I thought that's ideal. So I then got into the world of work, and some parts of it I enjoyed. At the back of my mind, I always knew this is not what I want to do forever. Obviously, it was only temporary jobs anyway, so you're between one contract and another, so you don't have that full security. But it taught me a lot about life, and it allowed me to take some of that income and start buying more books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, start looking at attending conferences, start investing my own education, because that was the only thing I could think to do to get more information on how do I become an entrepreneur. At the time I didn't know what business I wanted to start either, so I had to figure that out. It took me a long time to even figure out what business to start, but I was just trying to gather as much information as possible by any means that I could get my hands on, basically.
And so, at what point and why did you kind of take the leap into finishing up as an employee and going to like starting your own company?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it was just a case of, I knew I wanted to do more. I knew I was capable of more. I knew I didn't want to be in the same job for 50 odd years doing the same thing, and working with people that I didn't really like or didn't really get on with as much as I could compared to, if I start my own company, I could choose people that I do get on with and I do, have the shared values with. So, definitely for me, it was a case of I still, worked for the council for about 4 or 5 years or so before I then started my business. So I actually started my business back in 2017. So I think it was the 18th of May 2017 specifically is when I actually started my first limited company, which got me onto digital marketing and online marketing and helping business owners to grow their business and get more leads, clients, and sales. So that was my first ever business, and at the time as well, I was made redundant from my job. So it was very much like my feet to the fire kind of
Oh,
thing.
okay.
And I was quite fortunate because although I was being made redundant, I did have a company take me on as like a freelance marketing manager. So that was like effectively my first, contract, my first project. Again, no like permanent job or no, long-term guarantee of work with that, but that was my first kind of experience of entrepreneurship. Okay, I wasn't necessarily a business owner, but at least I had a little bit more flexibility. I was making the same kind of income I was at the council, but I had a lot more free time and I could work from home. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds, but you're not employed as such, you're still working for someone, but you have a bit more time freedom, which is
Sure.
what I was definitely
Yeah.
on.
No, that makes sense. And what led you from, because when I looked at kind of the roles you did at the council, they weren't particularly in the marketing world, were they? They were different things. So what led you down that kind of road? Because it's different to what you were doing previously.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely in the council, it was mostly administrative jobs. There were some finance roles, but yeah, very different to marketing. And I think for me, it was a case of so how I got that first freelancing job essentially was I someone recommended me to, or I was referred to someone, vice versa, and I had a conversation with them, and I was talking about all of the different things that I've been learning and researching and reading about. And
Mhm.
effectively, they took a chance on me, and they said, "Look, you're obviously passionate about this. I can see that you have a website about what you do." So at the time, I was just starting to grow my own social media consultancy business. So I had some, websites, some information about that. And they were very impressed by what I was looking to do, what I was setting up. And they said, "Look, love what you're doing. Come and do this for our company." So that was for a property investment company that I actually still work with to this day. Um,
Wow.
but in a different form now. But yeah, that was my first kind of um, experience. And obviously, I'm very fortunate that they effectively took a pun on me, and obviously, they're still working with me now. They must be getting some value
What
for sure.
industry was that company in?
So there is initially they were doing property investment training, but now they've evolved. So it's property business and wealth training. So they have a few different, I suppose, verticals or offers that they can provide to people.
It is interesting because I noticed this with quite a few people I talked to where they're like, oh, it was lucky that this, that, and other. But the fact of the matter is, you put in an awful lot of work prior to that conversation, and you
Yeah.
had the website before that conversation. It's not like you just like fell into something and like there was a lot of like under the surface things that had been going on, and that just happened to be right time, right place. But as most people in the sporting kind of sense will say, looked where you know perspiration and perspiration meets kind of like hard work, all the rest of it. Like that's what it really comes down to. You've looked into it, you invest in yourself, like you've done all those things. And then when you do have that conversation, you come across passionate, and then someone gives you a chance. Like it's not like you just,
Mm,
you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people aren't kind enough to themselves sometimes, going like,
yeah.
actually, you deserved it at that point because like you'd probably put in more hours than most people who even do that job do. You know what I mean? Just around the topic and trying to figure out what was going on. But I guess it often happens, you get that contract and did you think, oh bloody hell, how do I actually do this? Like, you know what I mean? I've been learning about it and whatever else, but like day to day, like, did you have any idea what you're actually going to be doing, or you just improvise, I suppose?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of both. So there's some stuff I knew that I could do very well. So quite lucky at the time because again that lucky thing
Yeah, yeah,
again, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
So they were doing social media, but they weren't doing very well. So I definitely didn't have to do much to improve it, but I have some really good suggestions whereby so for me for social media is great, but I ultimately, generally speaking, use it to get people off social media, which I know sounds counterintuitive. But what I mean by that is use social media to find people and network with people. But ultimately, I want to actually meet them, whether it's over Zoom, face to face, whether it's in a sales environment or not. I want to connect with people. So that's what I use social media to do, and that's what I show other people to do. Now, going back to the case in point, they were using social media, but they weren't really using it to attract people. They weren't telling people what to do to get into their network. So let's say they were running a webinar on property, getting into property or different property strategies. They weren't using social media effectively to get people to register for this webinar or generate interest in it. So those are some of the things we started to do. They started to do more webinars, run more events. We did a lot of email marketing with them. So yeah, it was a case of there were some things that I did kind of learn on the job, so to speak. There are other things that I thought actually I knew straight away I could add some value. I remember they took me on within, I think we had like a month trial or something like that, and we got about a week and a half in, and they said, no, like let's go for it, like let's forego the trial, like let's get you on board as soon as possible. Hand in your notice at your other job. I was originally going to do a trial, then hand in my notice. So they were very keen to get the ball rolling. But yeah, I guess going back to the question there, yeah, there's definitely stuff that I knew I didn't know the answer there and then to it, but I knew I'd figure it out. And that's my kind of my attitude towards life in general. I think there will always be things that you don't know, but what I do know is how I'm going to figure out that I will figure out. And to this day, I can't think of anything where, whether it's a tech issue, whether it's a marketing thing or whatever it is, I can't think of anything where if I had that attitude, I didn't figure it out. Like every time I had that attitude, I made something work. It's almost like the universe cleared kind of a path where if I was having a particular problem or issue, whatever it was, business or not, if I had that attitude, then I always found a way to overcome whatever that problem was.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Are there other books that you'd recommend that you'd read around the time that kind of helped you along your way?
Yeah, of course. So definitely one for me was 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Now, I think people probably recommend that a lot, but for me, even though I knew marketing and I was learning it every day and getting better at it, for me initially, my sales skills were not great. So when I first started my business, I didn't know how to sell myself very well. I was very, very much a technical guy and I knew marketing, but I struggled with, to be honest, I still had confidence issues. So because I just started my business, I hadn't really had much sales training. I was very new in business, so it's not like I had much experience in being able to pitch and present and offer something and sell with confidence. That came over time, but with that particular book, gave me a very straightforward set of instructions, and I think it was very much a mindset shift once I learned the principles in the book. They're very simple principles within the book, but I found it very effective. And at the time, I just needed something simple to implement. The one mistake I did make was trying to be someone else when I was in the sales process. I'm not like a pushy guy. I'm not a salesy person. Like that's the one thing I was trying to be like Grant Cardone a bit too much, I guess. With I was taking the information like too much. In what I'd say to people retrospect is when you are reading these books and you're learning this information, make sure that you're not doing anything that changes who you are when you're implementing this information. You've got to always be yourself. You've got to be true to yourself, and don't ever be something that that you're not. So, that's the one thing I learned from reading the book. As much as it was useful, they didn't teach you that, hey, you actually have to be yourself while you're doing this stuff. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair comment. I'm interested. You had a company in 2017, Brantigan Enterprise, and then another company in 2021. Like, what was the kind of shift there, or what is the shift between the two things?
Yeah, so within my current company, so it's still an operation. So I initially started that more as being a freelancer, where it's mostly just myself and I running that business with my newer company. So that's DBSS Digital. I founded that with my business partner Sam Druce. Now the reason I did that was I was just tired of doing everything on my own. I knew that if I wanted to achieve something amazing, I had to work with someone else who shared that drive with me, and I knew I couldn't do it all my own. So I took it from the model of, being a freelancer to becoming, an agency owner and running a real agency where we've got a team. And I spoke earlier about leverage. If you're a freelancer, there's nothing wrong with being a freelancer. Some really good benefits to it, especially if you're new to it and you come from being in a 9 to 5 job. Like it's definitely better in a lot of aspects. But you don't have the leverage. If you stop working, your income stops. If you take a holiday, your income stops. If you have a team that's working for you, so going to that, you have the leverage, so you can take time off. If you wanted to have a week off, a weekend off, whatever, you're able to do that, and things can keep running. So that shift for me was working as part of a team, and as one person, you're only good at a certain number of things and you're not so good at other things. So if you partner work with someone, whether it's in a partnership or not, but if you hang around with people that have complementary skill sets to you, where you're good at things that they're not so good at, and vice versa, I think you can really create some magic there.
And what sort of business do you work with now with the new kind of agency?
Yeah, so with the new agency, it's digital marketing done for you type of business. So similar to the agency I did have, the one thing we are doing with this agency, I mean, most of it is a done for you service, but we're getting more and more people asking, hey, how do you actually do, how do you build websites? How do you build landing pages? How do you do Facebook advertising? And so we are in the process now, or even have a product already. We're looking to add more to it. We're actually teaching people some of these skills as well. A lot of people don't have time to implement them, and that's where we come in. But of course, there are people out there that want to learn this stuff and really master it. And so we really want to teach that as well. So it's a new arm to the business we're looking to develop. But equally, we've got a lot of results for our clients as a done for you. We're very big on things like email marketing. So for example, we manage to send of around 1 million to 1.5 million emails per month. So we're very, very big on email. Bit of a tangent here, but it is relevant. But most people say, email is dead, email is dead. But we find email still to be the most effective method of communication. And so, I say that to say, that if you hear someone saying something negative about something, doesn't always mean it's the case. So
Yeah.
it's always a case of, and oftentimes people are saying that because they're trying to sell you on something else. People often say email marketing is dead, buy my course on how to do webinars, right, or something like that. So I say that to say, if you've got a plan and you've got a business model and it's working, you're getting results, and this is a mistake I made, that's why I'm sharing. Don't get distracted, and stay focused on what you're looking to do. Stay focused on your goal, your mission, what your business is about, and don't try and spin too many plates unless you need to.
No, that definitely makes sense. And for people kind of out there right now that I guess see social media as a bit of a maze, they want to improve their businesses, that sort of stuff. Like what's the kind of the first thing they should do? Should they reach out to an agency like yourself? Should they read around the subject? I mean, I guess is one of the problems that they don't know what they're trying to solve often. I just want more leads, like, you know what I mean? That sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a really good question as well, because oftentimes we do get people approaching us with those exact same questions. And what we normally say to people is we almost try and push people away unless they've done that initial proper research on, let's say you're looking to generate leads, and that's great. So what type of leads are you looking to generate? And what are you trying to get from these leads? Now, obviously, you're trying to get sales and clients in your business, but what I mean specifically is, do you have a process in place to qualify these leads, find the right type of people? And so what I normally say to people before finding an agency is, make sure you do your research, make sure you have everything as clear as possible. So when it comes to the actual implementation of, let's say you've just started a business this year and, you don't have any of that stuff figured out, I'd recommend you get that figured out before you look to invest in any marketing whatsoever. Because the problem is, if you don't have that figured out, then you don't know how much you need to spend in marketing to make a profit. Another example, most clients we work with, we say, what is your compelling offer, right? And we need to have a compelling offer. The reason being is, let's say they spend, I don't know, £1,000 on marketing and they generate 50 leads, for argument's sake, right? It might be more than that for that cost, but let's just say that, out of those 50 leads, how many do you expect to close? Let's say you close like five out of 50, 10%. That's not bad. And then how much do you generate from those 5 sales? So what I get people to do and recommend them to do is work through all these numbers, because again, otherwise you're just going in blindly to, investing in social media gurus, investing in ads. And I never want people to do that, even with us. I always want people to do that proper research themselves. What's your offer? How much are you selling it for? Is it profitable enough? If you're selling a £5 a month product, it's going to be difficult to really grow and scale it at that price point, generally speaking. So, I go back to make sure you're doing that research, make sure you understand your offerings and who it's for. And one of the most important things I say as well is, what's the urgency behind it? Why should people buy that product or service? And why should they buy it today rather than a year down the line? You've got to have some urgency within what you're offering as well. Otherwise, people just won't take it seriously and they'll never do business with you.
You mentioned also being quite someone that's worked a lot with automation. What's that kind of look like in your world?
Yeah, of course. So a few things. One of them is mention about email marketing. So with that, you've got some very powerful automations where, let's say someone books a discovery call with you to learn about your business and potentially become a client. But when someone books the call, you want to have automatic reminders going out about this call leading up to it. So let's say that it's in a week from now, this discovery call. You want to make sure they've got automatic reminders going out. And if it's on Zoom, here's the Zoom link in it. So that's one example. We find that works very well. So email marketing, as I say, we're very big on it. One fairly new thing that we're putting into practice that's really working is WhatsApp automation and WhatsApp marketing. So again, that's quite a new thing, and we're learning all about it ourselves. But even with basic WhatsApp marketing automation, we've found that if you're running events, webinars, you can expect to increase your show rate for those, and also for discovery calls, by as much as 20-25% with things like WhatsApp automation. And these are very basic WhatsApp messages, if I'm being honest, such as your discovery call is in 24 hours. Here's the link. Those types of reminders. Your discovery call is in 1 hour. And we're finding those very, very effective because, WhatsApp is a very trusted platform. And, text message marketing is a great automation aspect. That's very powerful. But, I find nowadays we are ignoring text messages more and more. We're very unlikely to ignore a WhatsApp message. So we're very big on the WhatsApp side of things, even though it's still fairly new compared to the email side. The open rate is as much as 90% with WhatsApp. With email, it's probably like 20. So it's just working really well, and there's so much you can do with it where you can create like a chatbot experience where someone has questions that can go on your website, and how you'd normally have like a chatbot, you can do that through WhatsApp. So there's loads and loads you can do with WhatsApp automation. It's a whole thing, but and it's because it's such a new thing, like very few businesses are using it. So it's compared to email, like every business owner sending email, right? It's not a new thing. That's practically expected. We all get 100 emails a day. How many of us get a legitimate WhatsApp message that we're expecting? Like, not many. And even when we do get a WhatsApp message, like, I don't know about you, I got a WhatsApp message today because I messaged someone weeks ago. And it was nice to get an unexpected WhatsApp message with something useful in it. So, you know, I find it's just a better method that people trust more, and you know, people respond to. Like I said, the open rate is 90%. It doesn't get much better than that.
Wow, that's interesting. And I guess with a view to the future, what's your look as to how AI is going to play in the space that you're in? I'm sure you're seeing it already, but where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, so it's difficult to say. I definitely think that, I mean, one prediction I do have is, you know, everyone using Chat GPT, and look, it's a great software, it's a great platform. It's one of many forms of AI. But I think as it becomes more popular, I think people will be able to distinguish, and it's already starting to happen, but people will get much better at distinguishing what's written by AI and what's written by a human. Sometimes it's more obvious than other times. But I definitely think there'll be more of a, let's say you're sending emails from a CRM system, or email marketing system, and you're using AI content. You know, I definitely think there'll be other tools out there that make it easier to detect if someone used AI copy or not. So I think it's definitely a case of, it's a great start. Like, I use AI a lot to generate some content, but I don't use it to generate like 100% of the content. So it gives you a good jumping off point. So that's definitely one of my predictions, like within the industry. I definitely think that I've already spoken to people that, you know, it's definitely put people out of a particular job for sure. But when there's times like that, there's also opportunity, because let's say AI is replaced your job. Well, it might make more sense to get a job. Well, let's say you're a copywriter and someone's bought an AI tool that does it for them, and you're that client then, you know, gives you the boot, right? For example's sake. Well, you could kind of flip it on its head, and you could say, look, you know, I write copy for people using AI, and I manage that process. So you get, it's like it's removing a job, but it's like it's creating one as well. You know, you could become the go-to expert for AI copywriting rather than be a copywriter, for example, you know, example and argument's sake. So I think there's definitely, with this downsides, I think there's opportunities in terms of like how far it can go. Outside of marketing, it's definitely some negative stuff with it. Like, you've got cloning of voices, and you know, all those kind of manner of things that can be, you know, a little bit freaky. But you know, overall, I think it could be a positive thing. And the fact it's so mass market, you know, back when I started my business, this stuff wasn't really available. We didn't have Chat GPT back in 2017. So I mean, had I had that, it definitely would have, you know, sped things up a lot more. One final thing on that is, you know, if you have a concept that you want to launch, AI is really good for getting that created a lot quicker. So let's say you want to launch a new product or service, AI can effectively, or a course, AI can create a lot of that for you. It can do a lot of the groundwork. You know, something that would take you weeks to do can take you weeks to create a course. You can now do it in, you know, literally one day with AI. So it can be very powerful, but I do think you've got to have the human element inside of it to really make it effective.
That makes sense. I guess on the future front, where's the kind of the next point in your business and your story? What's the next thing you're looking to do?
Yeah, of course. In terms of what
Just
I'm looking
where
for.
you're trying to go with the agency? What the kind of
Yeah.
next kind of step is for you?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, in terms of what we'd like to do, so as it stands, we've mostly been working with UK-based clients. That has now changed. So we've got our first international client within DBSS Digital, which is great, over in Canada. So one of the things we want to do more of is, you know, working with people more internationally. We love working in the UK. We're obviously UK-based anyway, but we want to be able to work more worldwide. You know, we've got another opportunity with Contact in Australia, where we'll be doing some online webinars, presentations, and potentially in the future something in person as well. So we'd love to take it more international, and you know, have more of a global reach, for sure. That's definitely one of our, you know, passions. But you know, I always like to travel as well. So if I can tie that in with business, then it's always a great mixture. And like I say on the aspect of we'd like to do more training on marketing automation, on email marketing, or whatever the case may be, digital marketing as a whole. We've got clients we've helped to run retreats overseas as well, and conferences overseas. We've got a client currently running one in Thailand for the property training company. And so we want to be able to do something similar within our business, and that's really what we'd like to get to is helping people to grow their business, but also having fun along the way. And one of the things and values that we always say is we won't show other people how to do it or help them to do it if we haven't done it ourselves. We won't try and blag it and say we know Google Ads when we don't. It's just not our stuff. So we want to do it the right way, in an authentic way, and build that path ourselves and then show people how we've done it.
That's great. And where would people be able to find you and the business? I'll obviously pop the links in below as well, but just for other people's sake.
Yeah, of course. So dbssdigital.co.uk. So on that website, you can find out a little bit more about the services DBSS Digital do. And also I've literally, as of yesterday, added a couple of testimonials and case studies as well. I do actually have a really cool giveaway. So if you are looking for my highest converting campaigns, I have actually just given them away for free. I've gone a bit crazy, but I've decided to do it. So by getting access to those, you'll get my best converting campaigns that have worked super well for me and my clients. So to access those, go to marketwithseb.com, where you can access those completely for free.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you for your time, and I'll pop the links below, and I hope some of the information and also the story that you have and how you've got to will kind of inspire some people to so maybe do something that they want to do or think about doing something different potentially.
100%. Yeah. Look, I've really enjoyed sharing what I've shared, and like the guy came to my high school randomly, and he shared a book that he read, and I read it, and I'd like that same experience for someone else if possible. So always happy to do that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Seb, and I wish you the best with international clients and everything else going forwards.
Thanks very much, and appreciate you having me on.
Cheers.